if you raise that ridge of your house, our kitchen will be in permanent darkness.
If I can scale it and then offer that to local businesses, local office blocks, agents who all struggle with maintenance, then it could be a really good cash spinner.
You know, if you were starting from scratch and you were running a maintenance business, and you had all the energy in the world to put all your time into building every system in that business, it will be successful. And, you know, fair play to him, he's managed to make that happen.
People listening, if you're going through full planning, it is very, very unpredictable.
That's how I feel about Bitcoin right now, mate. Have you seen the chart?
Oh,
what a prop to have.
You're supposed to be the eldest, Richard. You're supposed to be the eldest, leading by example.
Round up sound, real estate deals. We lay them down, let's get those deals. Deals making money, baby.
Welcome back, episode 32 of the Ground Up podcast. And today we're going to be chatting shop and answering some audience questions that we've collected over the last week or so. So, I mean, maybe just a little catch up, guys, like how everyone's getting on with their business, life, stuff like that. Stu, how are you getting on? Are you talking about buying some houses before we got on?
Yeah, just saying, I've got like 4 or 5 offers out there, just some resi little ones. I've got an investor who's quite keen on just buying them 50-50, doing them up together, keeping them in the same company, just adding to the portfolio over the next 5 years. And I've got like 4 or 5 offers out there, but the people just aren't moving on the prices. Like they want sort of the market we look for like 325 to 330, and we want to be buying them for around 3.5 to 3.15. So we're just putting these offers out there, but no one seems to want to. I think they're investment properties where people are just leaving the market and they're not in a major rush to sell. So there's not a huge, what's the word? There's not a huge urgency to get out of the market. So we've got like 4 or 5 offers out there, just waiting for them. I've looked at like 4 commercial properties as well, which are like sort of £3 million, which are good. So we just, but they're quite complicated with like technical leases, and there's a bit more complexity around them. So we're sort of trying to niche into that market where we're trying to find something that we can see an angle of adding quite a lot of value. Trying to work smarter, not harder, which is the motto for 2025 and beyond. It's just buy 4 or 5 properties that are going to make us decent returns and not just be busy fools. So that's what we're working on. But yeah, apart from that, the jobs that we're working on are going well. All the short HMOs going flying. Bank is flying. Doors have all been delivered. They've all been pre-formed doors. So we spent like 50 grand on, I don't know how many doors, can't remember now, but I didn't order them, but they're nice. They're just finished doors, which means we could do everything plastered. The doors get thrown in, then we could do all the skirting board and architrave. It's about 2 days per flat. So, and I'm also going away in like 2 days' time to Dubai for a week for my summer holiday because I can't wait to switch off. So I'm on the wind down now, really. I'm just going to sort of enjoy this. I won't be on next week if you do one, but I'll look forward to joining you boys when I get back. So that's my my week.
What's the actually wait a quick one? How's what about Skylofts as well? How's that? Because that's an interesting like arbiter for how the market's doing, isn't it? Right, with more domestic
picked up. Yes, I mean the leads are consistent. The deals are good. You know, we had I think it was 11 last month. I think we had like 4 or 5 this month, and we're still we're on the 20th. So there's still scope. I had a couple last night I was talking to that are 200 grand deals. So yeah, it's a real indicator. So when people start spending that 150 to 200 grand on their house again, people still feel a bit more confident in the market. The leads aren't there like they used to be yet, but I'm hoping that come sort of Q1 next year, we're going to be in a position where we can take a sales guy back on and just have one guy out there, you know, flying the flag, steering the ship. I've got all the infrastructure there ready for them, which I used to have a couple of sales guys. So I'm ready to take a good salesperson on, train them well, and then put them into the market when the leads are there. But we're booking in now till around sort of April next year, so it's good. It's all right. We're ticking by as it was survive to 2025. So we're out of the woods now. I think it's got to wait for the printing machine to start burning up the money, and everyone will start feeling wealthy again and start spending. So yeah,
nice,
it's all right.
What about you, Jack? How's busy?
Yeah, busy. Ben's just had his second child, so been carrying the fort a little bit, which is part of the parcel. But huge congrats to his family. But really busy. I feel like
Ben.
This is
Go on,
the
Ben.
sort of go on, Ben.
Big up, Ben.
This is the like
Sorry,
He'll love that because he listens to every one of these episodes. So I mean, we've been super busy. We got three refinances going through in Central Suites, 2 that just done in Aparo, and then 3 more that we're trying to do before the end of the year. We bought 2 houses in the last week in Central Suites. We've hired someone new in XB Property. We've got a big bid going out today on a new build site in my hometown. In XP, got another deal in legals in XP, which is joining the bank club. We're buying an old Halifax, which we'll split
Nice.
into flats. So getting all that lined up, but pretty much all dialed down. Really, it's just I feel like everyone's super busy externally. Like we're always pushing, punching above our weight and pushing aggression into everything that we're doing. But I feel like everyone's kind of doing it back at the moment to get stuff done before Christmas. So it's just a big run before then. But we got loads of projects. I'm actually really excited for the sort of December, January period because we've got shitloads of projects to be, delivering and getting progress moved on. We're in XP. We're still live on 5 sites, and by sort of December we'll be live on 6 houses in Central Suites. So it's going to be a busy old run.
Nice, mate. Do you feel like pressure's on when you're on more active sites, or do you feel like pressure's on when you're in the buying phase and like having to like get these deals stacked up, get them out the door?
So in Central Suites, I do still deal with the project management. So the pressure's on when we're on site.
Yeah.
Where is in XP, I'm not. So our team feel the heat when I've bought a load of shit, and then they've got to deal with it, and Ben's got to deal with it. So for me, it's in XP, it's the buying phase, and because it's lumpier stuff, there's always more complexities. And in Central Suites, even though I find those projects super easy to manage, because I literally my brother's just like, he said, I want to like shadow you on a project, and I've actually been really bad at like educating him because I just keep it all in my head. Like I literally just run a project, and I'll have like 4 projects live, and nothing will be delayed because I know what the next step is for every single one, whether it's connection agreements with Thames Water, party wall agreements, ordering materials, ordering second fix items. But I'm just so used to that now. I've been doing sort of those standard house bashing projects for like 13 years now. It's just all in my head, and it's actually been quite difficult to try and teach that because now I've got to like change how I work to change how he works. But
Surely Goldman Sachs teach you how to delegate.
Yeah, but it's been one of those things that I haven't really needed to delegate. We when you invest the time into, so Richard's done 30 projects with us, and the other contractors like done a few. And when you get into a process, they know what you want. So it's a bit like your loft fitting team. Like, do you need to do as much work as you did when you onboarded them and started working with them? No, you don't. Like, they get it. They get the picture. They understand. They come to you with less issues. So I've also
delegating
got
was the most liberating thing you can do. Once you do it once, you never want to not do it. I mean, it's.
Jack loves it though. Jack loves
Yeah, I
it.
know. He needs
Jack,
to be
wait,
used to some of the
on
cogs.
site.
Jack
He loves to
shouts
flip.
the word work in sleep. It's like
I will say, if let's just assume I had my time again, I would just be house bashing. I love it. I love a little house bash project. Like
see
going
now
back
there's the
into
root
an
cause
absolute-
there, right there, Stuart. Right there
Yeah.
is the root cause.
He loves it.
I do love it. I do love
Loves
it.
it.
So you said, I think before we went live, you said Rob stepping out the lettings a bit more is the idea for you to gen him up more on the project management side for Central Suites.
Yeah, so we've been doing portfolio building for one client for 3.5 years, and we've got 2 new clients that are all like pretty much ready to go. One of them's got capacity to do 2 to 4 houses a year. Well, they've both probably got the capacity to do that. And I said to my brother, I was like, physically, we can't keep growing our portfolio with flips and HMOs, which is typically 8 houses a year, and then grow another 8 houses a year without bringing someone in. And also my best sort of place in that business is definitely overseeing a little bit of the PM stuff and getting things bought, but definitely like capital raising and partnerships. So the idea is he's moving from he's basically set a goal for our lettings team that he's going to remove himself to an hour a month. and then he's going to step into more of a project delivery. We're going to hire someone hopefully in more technical that can draw nose planning. We probably like QS or building surveyor or architectural technician that then sits under like me and him and does all the technical and all the projects, and then Rob oversees most of them and I oversee a few. But yeah, I mean, all that project management is super easy until you get a problem deal, like our Wallingford deal, which was basically didn't have foundations, was falling over, has probably cost me more time than a lot of our, £8 million GDV sites in XP property, just because of all the little nuances that come with it. But yeah, he's transitioning into the delivery because we're growing. Had a really interesting meeting with someone that we might partner with, which would basically like 5x, maybe 10x Central Suites, really go into like scale mode, who is purely going to bring the equity and the investment. So I'm sort of transitioning the business. I've always wanted to grow it, but obviously I've got a watering can full of water, and every time I pour a bit in XP Surveys and XP Property, there's only a little bit left for Central Suites. I have no doubt that Central Suites would be delivering 50 projects at any given time if that was my sole focus. So it's all like navigating the growth for that business, which is essential for Rob to see like the full end of the, he's a doer. He's like the A to B. I'm like the thinker and the partnerships and the funding and the vision and the which obviously it's all like personality profile. I'm like the dynamo. I'm like the one that's like blazing a trail, whereas he's like the in the office, like the doing. So to speak. So that's why the collaboration works so well. So yeah, sort of growing to that point of taking on scale.
And
I've got a question for you guys, because you use XP Surveys, XP Property for more cash flow generating, don't you? And then you use Central Suites for more capital appreciation. It's like, how do you divide your time with what is more important? Is it 50-50 in those businesses, or are you sort of trying to hand more to Rob to deal with the wealth building longer term, while you focus more of your time on XP Property and trying to deal with the bigger jobs where you make more chunky numbers? Yeah,
I see them as two standalone businesses, because Central Suites is all my brother does. He doesn't do anything outside of that. So therefore that business needs to cater for him. I'm more of almost like it, as a relationship to the building. Obviously, I'm very in the weeds and doing stuff day to day, but I'm probably more like non-execy type stance, where I'm helping the business, but I don't need anything out of it day to day. Whereas my brother does. So Central Suites actually does, obviously, out of the 8 assets that we typically buy a year, we keep 4, we sell 4, and those 4 that we sell, we make between 40 and 150 grand in flipping houses. So it actually does cash flow quite well. And also our rents are higher than our costs are every month, and it's a super lean team. We've only got 2 full-time employees. And we're now, it turns over £1 million. So it's a super lean outfit, which is one of the reasons I'm happy project managing, because as soon as you bring in someone on 40 grand a year, that's half of the net profit gone. So it can't swallow that quite easily just yet. But as in time split, I probably spend what I would dream to spend is 50% in XP Property, 25 in Central Suites, 25 in XP Surveys. Of late, that's been probably halved in every business, because I've been firefighting in the social portfolio, and I've actually been spending 50% of my time in that, which is super painful. Like, if you're like a visionary growth person, try spending 3 years stabilizing and not growing a problem when you could be watering all these other pots of business. It's painful,
don't it?
mentally difficult.
What's the reason for the time sink still in the social portfolio?
Cash flow problems, tenant problems. So our RP isn't what it was cracked up to be. We're still on some short-term finance, which we're getting off, and finally the end is in sight. Hopefully by Jan next year that will all be sorted. Politics is difficult, dealing with all the different various partners and shareholders and stakeholders. The market's fucked, so we can't exit. Well, when I say the market's fucked, it's shifted 2%, which is your profit margin on a yield-based play. And it just needs a lot of, and we can't afford to bring someone in to do a lot of the stuff. So I've been managing. We used to have a lady that was head of legal and finance and admin. I'm doing all of that for the refinances, which is super painful. Yeah.
Fuck us.
So quick question then for all of you. So Jack, mostly, I suppose, if you had the choice between looking at 2 £3 million GDV sites or 10 Central Suites, which one would you use? Which one's going to swallow more of your time? And you had to choose one next week to focus your energy on. Which one would you go? What path would you go down?
Yeah, so I suppose the difference between XP and Central Suites is Central Suites is very much like family-led, lean business, capital appreciation, growth growing, eventually going to be a large portfolio, which is like a legacy item, whereas XP is a development company that has to find a new site, have to find the funds, have to deliver it, have to take the market risk and sell and exit. Definitely the larger the sites, if you've got the capabilities and the team, the larger sites are better return on time and actually less risky. But the sort of in Central Suites, when you're knocking out, at any given time, 4 assets, 2 are HMOs, 2 are flips, it is way more time consuming, so to speak, to get that going. But then if you obviously can facilitate a time, but I think that when you say which would you say is more time consuming, which would you do? I want to do both. I want to do the HMO business and I want to do the development company. But if
it depends on what you got on the plate as well, isn't it? It depends on what you've got on your plate. If you're sort of heavily in delivery on the big sites, you've got this capacity to get creative, still work a new structure out. And if you are, if you're time constricted, you just want a few HMOs just to keep the cash flow coming in and keep the pipeline going.
The return on time building a development company, definitely the less amount larger deals. We've got over 35 million in delivery today, and there's only 8 in that team. Whereas in Central Suites, if we do 4 houses, that's probably like 3 million in delivery, and there's 2 in the team. So the ratio is that the return on time and return on the actual business is huge. But then you've obviously got to be much more cute at managing a development company, because the sort of delays and peaks and troughs hurt a little bit more. Because you got all of a sudden in Central Suites, I've got to find 10 grand out of somewhere, whereas in XP that's 150 grand.
And a question to the other guys quickly: what would you prefer to do? Higher reward, more time; less the reward, less time. And how would you fill your next 12 months up? Would you like to earn less and do a lot less, or would you rather earn big bucks and invest a lot of your time? I suppose it depends on where you are on the journey of life as well, but just interested to see what you guys think.
I'm guessing with the high returns, there's higher risk.
Oh yeah, high risk, high return. We just put more energy. You've got to put a lot more energy in, but you're going to get an awful lot more out of it. Or would you rather put 0 or very little energy in to get a smaller return?
I feel a Bitcoin plug coming.
No. Just one.
No, he doesn't
That's
need
how
to plug anything.
That's how I feel about Bitcoin right now, mate. Have you seen the chart?
Oh,
my that's good. What a prop to have.
You're supposed to be the eldest, Richard. You're supposed to be the eldest, leading by example.
I'd answer your question with at the moment I'm very interested in trying to finesse the different baskets I've got my fingers in. That's where I'm spending all my energy, like quite flat along those different things, having to go in at different points, but trying to just get a lot of different things kind of levitating. That's my sort of goal that the next year, is just to build everything incrementally and not take any outsized risk in one of the companies, particularly because we've got the like 6 big sites, or what I'd consider big sites for us compared to our standard HMOs, that all need to get financed. I'm going to have to give PGs for them all. So that's my risk already. So I'm trying to just build up the other stuff around it without taking on anything stupid.
Right,
but D.
So I think I'd like to give a very simple answer, but as you said, it does depend on a couple of things, like where you're at in your career, and also how you're valuing where those returns come from. So a big part of my business was that the individual deals obviously make money, but really I was always going for some form of trade and business valuation, which was going to come later on. Like the big part of my exit and plan was to have a trade and business valuation. So for me, it was all about and our particular business model with that, like we're in social and affordable housing because of, lends really well to where we're based as well. The values are lower, therefore you have to do volume. You can't really build a business in my sector doing kind of 2 deals a year. It's not a business, it's more of just a hobby development. So so to answer your question, I've gone down the route, which I don't mind, of doing more work for building a bigger entity, in the hope that it will attribute a value in due course over time, and then I can exit from that, so to speak.
And how is the biz getting on, D? How's biz?
Yeah, so, and sorry, you probably see me going looking around the room a lot. Is because I've made a fundamental faux pas error today, which is I've lost my laptop charger. So I will answer this, and then I will quickly
And then
find
the
another
power will
one in
go
the
and it'll be
office.
off.
Yeah, exactly. So to answer your question, what am I up to? Lots of things. Business is going well in terms of that we've got good top line growth, we've got good pipeline growth, and part of like the business plan of where we wanted to be, it's on the way there. When I set the business up, I set it up with very aggressive targets. Again, so I wasn't really favoring or prioritizing short-term results, even though I wanted them and there was targets, etc. And we did obviously have some issues then with external forces like inflation. But the plan is pretty much going to plan, just a little bit delayed than I wanted to. Jack's right. The problem with the development business is obviously as a trading entity, you need to always be looking for that next site, and you can be hit. It's very, very volatile if you got delays. So the landscape in terms of development is really risky because you're very, very prone to delays. And there's nothing you can do about it. Like we've got consented sites a minute that we just can't start because of waiting for a BAT license, and you can't get that BAT license until you've got planning, and then it just goes into the ether of someone's email box, which you're just waiting for them to respond saying, okay, I'm simplifying it there, but basically that's what happens, and you're chasing and chasing and chasing. Anyway, sorry to answer your question. Right, well, I am currently working on a funding restructure at the minute, or I'm in conversations with, and I have been for most of this year, different funds, investment funds, to bring in additional capital to scale the business even further, which is exciting. Conversations are progressing. We're currently building 220 homes right now as I speak, and our pipeline sits north of 800. I think it was 850 last time I checked homes. But we've got 6 sites due to start in the next 5 months, so it's a really busy time, and that's because of these delays. And in terms of pressure, you asked Jack the question earlier. Most of our pressure comes from that pre-construction phase there, so post-planning and pre-start, because that little piece of the entire cycle there, literally. It's you once you've got the permissions, you've been waiting for so long, you just want to get on site, but the problem is you can't do a lot of that fundamental work which makes you be able to deliver on time, to cost, and to etc. You can't really start that until post planning, so that's really, really pressure time, and
That
we've
is the
got quite a lot
biggest
of them.
risk, I think, of the whole development. It's just knowing what,
Yeah.
because we could get on with like the next 4 or 5 steps, which include so many bits between actually starting and the stage 4 drawings, and do you push before you get the planning, and it's all these little bits that that you could easily lose 4 months or 3 months on a development site that you could overlay and run in parallel and speed the process up. And there's always this huge risk between
Yeah, exactly.
going too
I
early.
think I always think it's an
And it's
interesting.
really expensive. It's really
Yeah,
expensive.
really expensive.
It's an interesting time issue, isn't it, with pre-con, because it is so crucial. But what happens is you're waiting for all this stuff to come back for ages. You're waiting and waiting and waiting on other shit, and you're ticking bits off, and you're pushing it as quick as you can when it comes through. And then all of a sudden, yeah, you're ready to go, boys. And then suddenly it's all back on you, and it's your own initiative,
Yeah.
your own time allocation to go, shit, all right, quick, get everything. We want to get everything up and running, but you don't want to rush it and make a mistake or make some crazy pre-assumption and go for financing. It's like the intense part, isn't it, pre-con?
Yeah, and because we're in the construction side as well, and we just want to place on a framework, which is good. But we get some tender opportunities now from clients, which is the same clients, housing associations, and if you look at the time that they've got consent, this is for deep when they're going out for tender for post REBA stage 4 detailed drawing, so to speak, stage. But if you look at the time they've got consent versus the time they're going to be starting on site, sometimes it's literally up to a year post permission. Because of all that pre-construction work now, and because they're using consultants and it's taking a lot of time and they're ironing everything out. The problem, we can't afford to do that. Most of my team will tell you that we get on site too early, and I'm like, my God, I guess we've been working on a site for 2.5 years. We've just not been able to, because it's honestly, people listening, if you're going through full planning, it is very, very unpredictable. Like we've had so many sites advanced, stop, be redesigned, just. What do you do there? Regs change, etc. And before you can officially start, there's just so much stuff that can happen.
I've got a real life case study. So Twickenham,
Yeah.
quickly. We are into the depths of planning. It's with Richmond Council. The planning officer, I won't mention his name until we get planning, but it's been very difficult, very distant. It's no phone calls. It's emails that take 3, 4, 5 days to return. So we've got a lovely scheme. The daylight survey we had done was modelled incorrectly. So the amount of light that was coming into one of the flats on the first floor wasn't quite hitting the advisable standards. Now it's not a planning they shouldn't have to refuse it because it was just right on the limit between what was acceptable or not. But it was because the trees were modelled in the wrong position. So anyway, we're going down that. He's going away for 2 weeks on holiday. He's going to recommend it for refusal. We've gone back and said the model was wrong. Here's the new data. Obviously, because of the tree, he said we wouldn't accept you cutting the tree or topping the tree because that would affect the planning. We don't need to chop the tree, but now we need to chop the tree because of the scaffolding access out the front. We need to put a fan over the front to sort of protect the public. So now we're in this dilemma. Do we push ahead with a separate application, which could be detrimental to the existing planning app because if it lands on the same guy's desk or it starts crossing over, or do we actually wait, get the planning consented for the site and then reapply to top the tree at the front to do the scaffolding, which we need to put the tin out over the top. So all this has a huge knock on, and there's also a tree at the back which is in no man's land, which no one actually knows who owns it. So the council are sort of taking adoption of it, which all the residents in the back want to remove, and it's fucking all the drainage up. It's going under houses. But then who is going to take the tree out? Because if they give us planning for it and we go and chop the tree out in the back garden, completely separate application, all costing money and time. And then there is some subsidence or some movement is on the neighbours' foundations or drainage, even though we've already said we're going to redo, block pave, sort all the drainage out and all the neighbours are on board. If we were to take the liability of taking the tree out and there's subsidence to one of the other buildings, this is a condensed area, right? So there's lots of risk. Then it's going to become our liability and our problem. So there's like so many other bits of issues around the planning site where all we want to do is stripped. We want to get in there and go. So yeah, it's just trying to tie up those building blocks of get the planning. Then we have to wait another 2 to 3 months for the front tree. Can we get on the inside and start progressing, get the development facility up underway, and then put the tin out on once the tree at the front's been topped, which we don't need for the natural daylight.
Can you not scaff around the tree?
The tree is literally touching the building. So yeah, we've now got scaffold designs. So then we're paying out another couple of grand for the scaffold design to see if we can work around the existing tree and put the fan up on level 3, if you like, just to protect the public, which obviously costs more money and time. So it's this all these costs of these building blocks.
I always find there's whenever we're dealing with councils, planning, trees, neighbours, whatever it may be, the most important thing is bring everything into your control. So I would say, put the fan in a place, even if it costs you more to get around that tree, get the planning consent, get on site, get started. I'd send an email to the council on the rear tree saying in 2 months' time, we're going to remove this tree. If you have any issues, let us know. If they don't reply within 2 months, get the thing out and move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that tree in that back lane as well is bait. It's like a big fucking tree in it. And it's like literally tucked into these houses.
We've got a meter between the poles and the fence line next door. We've already spoke to the neighbours. They're already happy for us to move the fence line. We said we'll put new fences in, new block paving. We'll go right way down to where the bins are. Fortunately, they're lovely and they're like, yep, do what you need to do. Whatever you do on the back is going to make it look nicer. So yeah, we're going to take the fence post down. We'll still be able to get machinery and plant through and materials around the back, even if we can't move the tree. But yeah, we're under 2 minds whether we whip the tree out and deal with the consequences, pay the fines, see what happens. But we'll wait. We're going to go into planning and just see what they say. So it's all fun and games, mate. The world of development is always constantly, but bigger risk, bigger reward. This site will be a fantastic reward if we get everything we want out of it and we build it, feasibly. We build it efficiently.
I mean, we got a site now that we got some big exchanges coming up, and we got one site now we're working on. It's literally got every constraint we've worked on in one site. And honestly, the question has come up several times: do we even do this site? And it's got demolition, asbestos removal, Japanese knotweed, contaminated land, retaining walls, party walls, diversions, and working across the other neighbour's land, off-site works. It's got basement works. It's got waterproofing works. It's got a unique design. It's got the structure. It's the way it's been designed is more prone to progressive collapse. So it's just. So it's got everything. It's got everything.
On a minefield, it used to be a Roman church or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So stormy seas make good sailors, Dorian.
Well, no.
It's a test for the future. It's when you're walking through Victoria in London, you go, "I own that building." You got to remember this site, which taught you everything. Taught your team everything you know.
I was in London.
Sounds like an early heart attack to me.
You can't see this, but I was in London, and this is a thing, right? Yeah, this is the Piccadilly Underground. Now you can't see it, but basically, 1920 sketch of the Piccadilly Underground, right? And I'm thinking, this is an engineering challenge, right? And I have some conversations about a 14 block story, a 2-story timber frame of my team talking like it's the problems has come up. I mean, it's just ended, and I'm just in my mind always goes back to shit like this. If you could
Yeah.
They
fucking
can
do
build
stuff
that.
like that in 19,
Or foundations of buildings in Dubai. It's all sand,
Yeah.
beach.
Mental,
Is it?
yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
they're throwing them up 60 stories. And my little
2
building in
kilometres.
Wallingford has taken 16 hours to get the structural engineers to draw something that you can actually fucking put on site.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what about you, Rye? How's business?
So just a quick one. Jack, are you stood up?
Yeah.
Are you always stood up when we do these pods?
No.
Jack
I've got-
sleeps standing up and just
I've got
repeating the same
a,
I've just
word-
seen you
word.
like wandering, and I
honest-
was like, what?
honestly,
Yeah, I've seen you do that, and I was like, wait, what?
I'd highly recommend. I can put it up and down. I'd highly recommend stand-up desk. So
Our
I
new
can
office
go-
we're building, all the office staff have asked for stand-up
we're
desks
going
or
down.
the adjustable ones.
Oh, look, we are going down. Look at that. Oh,
no.
I could actually show everyone the old back while we're at it.
there she is.
Round
But
up,
yeah, so-
Turn around and let everyone read it. Let everyone read it.
real estate deals.
There you
The
go,
trouble
Jack.
is your
Jack's
Zoom,
model.
your Zoom, because you're
Sounds
behind
like-
your. It sounds like you need a bigger pipeline. Okay, the
Sounds
reason
like-
your focus is
Didn't even
Stu
say it
Allen,
right.
mate.
To actually reading
Like,
it,
oh,
like,
yeah.
I wonder what that says there.
What it says, it just sounds like you need a bigger pipeline.
I'd actually
That's a good
highly
saying.
recommend.
Someone should get that on a jumper.
It's a great idea.
Because I've had I know this is going to sound like a right boo boo, because I've actually done so much work at the desk, and I normally go to the gym, but I've sacked that off to get all this work done and cover pen and get the Goldman Sachs assignments done.
Excuses, mate.
Standing at desks when you're spending so much time at a desk is so good. In the afternoon, like just mix it up. Sometimes I'll kneel on my chair, sometimes I'll sit down, sometimes I'll stand up. So I've done quite a lot of work at home of late. It's really good. But anyway, right, you crack on.
Yeah, I want to do the same, mate. It's better for your back when you stood up as well. So yeah, cracking on as usual. Like I said, it's just trying to spend that time on just working on all the different businesses, and we're actually starting a new business as well. So we've over the last like 3-4 months, we've been fleshing out the idea of scaling a maintenance arm, so a maintenance side of the business. And we already do maintenance anyway. We have 2 full-time maintenance staff, and we have Marcia who manages them. And we currently use the lettings software that spits out our maintenance requests from tenants and things like that. And then we manage it manually through WhatsApps and Excel sheets. But instead, a guy called Jamie Matthews, shout out Jamie, because he's super generous with his time. He's scaled a maintenance business over the last few years. And I got him up about a year ago to show me all the systems, how it all operates, and he just showed me everything, warts and all, numbers, pricing, the systems, all of it, all the bottlenecks and the hurdles. And I was like, that's a great tether on to our existing business, because we need to deal with maintenance anyway. And if I can scale it and then offer that to local businesses, local office blocks, agents who all struggle with maintenance, then it can be a really good cash spinner. So we've now just we had a meeting yesterday, and we've had Marcia looking through all the different softwares, what's the best ones to use that actually manage the maintenance staff themselves. And you can use all these things like QR codes for assets, for areas, and they can raise tenancy. Tenants can raise requests for all of that stuff. So we'll be figuring out the nuances of the process. And now we've set it in stone. We're getting started next week with the software. And then mid-December, we're going to start marketing to local agents, clients, things like that. And try and not our clients, but as in other clients, external, and then see if we can build a maintenance business off the side of what we're doing. Don't know if you guys have got any insights there. I know there's obviously
You really want to build a
Fucking
maintenance
headache,
business. You really
Do you
want
think
to
it's a
build a
headache?
maintenance business.
It's
I do.
absolute headache.
I know it sounds mental.
You can make good
but
money out of it, but swallow
Yes.
your time. It will swallow your time. Like, it will swallow more time than it's, in my opinion. I used to be involved with a business. Well, my first company I set up with 2 brothers, and they were into government, into council contracts where they would go around and punch holes in walls before the boiler would be upgraded by a company, and then they would outsource and sub to the heating engineer would go in and do brick maintenance, would sort out stains and windows and glazing panels, and it just swallows the time. You know, for one cracked glass panel, You know, you've got to go there, take the window out, you've got to measure it all up. You can make 250 quid. You know, you might make 80 quid clear profit, but it's just a ball ache. It's just, if you go, like I was saying between earlier, between more energy, more profit.
I would actually argue government or council contracts for continuity of work of like replacing
Cashflow,
stuff is probably better. Is a friend of ours from CC, Billy, does that. I'd probably say that's better.
The voids and
that's
maintenance
one thing. That's
contracts
kitchens. He does kitchens all the time. Hello, darling. Morning. That's kitchens where he can the continuity of the same thing. But when you're doing maintenance, 1 minute you're doing a washing machine leak, then you're doing a door handle, then you're doing and then it's getting the right door handle to match, and it's all the stuff that can take the time is where it just swallows energy. It's very noisy.
This is where it's taken us a few months, and I've been consulting Jamie on a lot of this stuff. But the systems you can put in place are pretty they're pretty robust, and it's about getting the different tiered pricing right. So it's labor and materials; those are the two fundamental pricing. But then you have your standard pricing packages for things like late call outs, early call outs, gas checks, all that kind of stuff. And then there's also just the actual survey itself. And it's just a standard price. You survey it, you make about 30 quid off of just doing that survey. If you then win the job, you're then making maybe 150, 250 quid. You could do a tanking job and make $2,000. But everything's systemized in that sort of business.
It depends on who your customer is as well, because if you're dealing directly with contractor to contractor and you're dealing with investors, they're not going to care too much about patching in a wall that needs to be decorated to blend. Now, you need terms and conditions beyond belief. And obviously, if you're jack of all trades, there's 20,000 things you need to try and capture to not have these disagreements. But if you're patching in a plastered wall and the plaster doesn't quite work, and then you need to decorate it, and then they're not happy with the finish, that energy that you can't consume and you can't put into a spreadsheet is where you'll lose the time. And it's that it's compressed into 30 different tickets, 50 different tickets, 100 tickets you're working on is where the pain comes. And that just come over time.
It's basically the point where you're fitting lofts, Stuart, and you're in full control of that part. And the point where it meets the existing building, that's like the discrepancy that you're talking about.
That's
like
the line. That's the line.
Yeah.
The line is that bottom step up is what we totally control. And from that bottom step up is everything we manage, we maintain, and we take full accountability for. The existing property, when you're blending in a bit of skirting board that's handmade that you can't get made, that you have to then spend extra money on the template. The customer didn't realize they have to pay for the template. They assumed it was included. All these things, who's fitting the kitchen worktop when the wall comes out, all these little bits where you just have these discrepancies. 2 secs, guys. Let's quickly say goodbye to my daughter.
Other than obviously reducing your costs of potential maintenance and sort of obviously bringing in a business that has margin in it as well, what's your actual end goal? What do you want to get out of it? Morning.
Look, arrow. Little Stu, mate. What a dad! Cute. What a geezer. I think the main thing, mate, is I like businesses that are difficult. Like I like difficult businesses, which is the reason we wanted to take on the construction, not only to take control, but also build if you can build a reputable construction business with just reputable with trust, and then work on the processes, work on the delivery. I just think that's like owning a gold mine. And I think maintenance is such an unsexy, difficult, boring, monotonous business that not many people get into the space. And all I see is huge demand from agents with backlogs of maintenance requests, office buildings, all kinds of stuff. I mean, we know it ourselves because we have to deal with our own maintenance. And we've learned how to deal with this stuff anyway, how to deal with the nuance of different problems. And so we've experienced it. And I've seen Jamie do it at scale and asked him about these different nuances. And it's just a case of having processes, systems just everywhere to be able to manage with the inbound. And because maintenance is so unsexy and has typically disappointed most people, their expectations aren't very high. So it's just managing that team properly.
I've met Jamie a few times, and fair play to him. He's making a killing and he's doing it really well. But I just think there's other ways. If you were starting from scratch and you were running a maintenance business and you had all the energy in the world to put all your time into building every system in that business, it will be successful. And fair play to him, he's managed to make that happen. But because you're spread into other areas and you've seen what profits you can make on different types of construction projects, I just think it's a lot of work for the profit.
Also, I've found I don't know what the fuck's going on with my camera today. It's fucking doing my head in.
Depth of field,
I've found that
because you're stood up.
Yeah, it's because I'm censored. It's my camera knows when I'm stood up. Thanks, Dorian.
Yeah. Slouch down like the rest of us, Jack.
Yeah. I've found a lot of the grass is greener is like the classic phrase. I've had a lot of people that for example, I'm like almost jealous of their cash flow business. Almost a bit like, let's say, Stu, you weren't doing developments. There will be an element of me that's jealous of your cash flow generating business that's creating high cash flow, but then you might be jealous that I'm doing a development. And I feel that if I was a maintenance company, I'd be jealous of the portfolio building that you're doing, of all the projects that you're delivering. So but you can't have it all, and you don't need to have it all.
You can try.
And the grass is always greener.
I wouldn't be doing maintenance if I wasn't in property. Absolutely not. But because we're doing it anyway, so we're doing it anyway as a part of making sure we are a truly like hands-off, in control business of every facet we do. But at the moment, we don't make any money doing it because we're just doing it to maintain the portfolio, keep things moving. Whereas we could basically just tether the system a little bit, make it a better system by getting the right software in, and then offer that out to people we know, like we know these business owners and we know they've got those issues, they've got the demand. Can we put, I could walk through like all the bottlenecks and things like the actual hardest thing about a maintenance company and scaling it is actually getting the personnel, getting the tradies and locking them in on PAYE, because you can't do it as subcontractors, on PAYE, and retaining that staff, and then trying to get reliable gas safety guys. And those are the bottlenecks to me. The pricing, the dealing with the job in hand, you can make really good money on it. So I don't see that as the issue. Obviously, there's standards to uphold and things like that, but maintenance has already got a bad reputation because of how nuanced and difficult it is. So I don't think we're going to have to blow expectations at all.
I think you got some good arguments going for you, and some obviously again. No, I wouldn't say against you, but
It's difficult
against you. So my business is land development and construction. We have to do the construction, otherwise our deals don't really work in social sector because it's a lower margin business. So we started off with just typical construction management, subcontracting to everybody, but ultimately we take the cost risk. We are on a fixed price contract, and obviously I felt the other side of that of having to deliver a job for a price when the margin goes. It's obviously the worst thing. One good thing in maintenance, if that happens, the value is small, and it's mainly your head time that's going to lose personnel time. But to control that, I've also stepped into the vertical integration, stepped into the supply chain by launching a civils and groundworks business, because it accounts for best part 25% of a new build. And we've also launched this year an M&E business, but we feed those two businesses with purely our own pipeline because of just how many sites we're on and forecasted to be on. And they're both going to be £10 million turnover plus businesses in their own right in the next 2 years, just from our own pipeline. So I suppose coming back to your thing, if you've already got like a decent, I think Jack, you talked about this before, if you've already got a decent level of business you're already feeding to another entity, and it's still taking your head work and time, etc., you should always do that analysis of potentially diverting that to your own controlled entity. Like that's something I do all the time. And I've got other businesses now in the pipeline that as soon as we get past a certain threshold of spending, really it's going to be more beneficial if I find the right person to head up a business in that sector, and we feed that business the business, and they also try and build other clients into it. Does that make sense?
That's kind of where we...
Prime example of that is our surveying business. Our most profitable year was our first year. We were doing about 40 to 50 grams worth of surveys across XP, Central Suites and Aura. And to hire a decent surveyor is, almost half that. And within year one, we made like 20 grand profit. Obviously, we've reinvested all of that and we've grown the business. And now we're, turning over £500,000 sort of at this moment in time. But that was an easy transit. It was actually less risky to set that business up than it was to not. And you can sometimes think about that. Have you ever thought about, Ryan? Because we've looked at this. I've looked at potential setting up my own local estate agency, because in the next 8 months, I'll spend 350 grand on estate agency fees.
Right, exactly.
I've looked at, and not when you meet an estate agent, like the manager of the office, they do a good pitch. They are good, and then you get given a 21-year-old that doesn't have much in the background of an education and a learning off that other person. And I feel if I just hired someone on good money, all of these
Yeah.
would trade better.
It's like,
I've looked
I'm
at-
running we're going to spend 250 grand in the next 12 months on recruitment, for example. If not necessarily recruitment, I'm on about recruitment agent
Recruitment
fees. So I'm
fees,
thinking,
yeah.
I'm thinking,
Bring someone in house.
I literally could just invest in someone, and they separate a different business, and we carry on feeding that business. But then I like the idea of ecosystems. I love ecosystems.
Yeah. Ooh. Say it again.
Eco.
And then I've also looked at cleaning.
Look at that
Ryan. Have you
tree
looked at
behind me.
cleaning?
Look at that tree behind me. That's a lemon tree. Do you know the
Yeah.
purpose
Have
of that?
you
from
got a
Crown
charger for that one?
I just found a charger, hence why I'm piping up now. So,
Go on.
And cleaning company is something, because the thing is with agencies, you've got loads of other noise around it. Cleaning is cleaning. They take their product, they clean the property, they move on to the next one, and it's all about organization and no actual technical. You don't have to worry about product, like Stuart said, about door handles and door closers and fucking getting the right items, the right paint color match, and all of that sort of shit. They just got going, and when they leave, hopefully it's cleaner. But we spend about I don't even know what it is, probably over 100 grand a year on cleaners. And you could do the maths. That's another business that you could fold. But then I do look at the noise that comes with that. You're normally paying someone minimum wage. They're normally fucking unreliable. And when that's for a client, it's painful. And when it's for your own property, the tenants complain because they didn't turn up. And it's just more people, which is why I like super lean businesses where there's less people and more control.
But there's also there's strength though in. Go on.
I was just going to say, I just through previous experience and over the 20 years of doing this, 15 years of running my own businesses and trying these little things, and the first honeymoon period of going, it's 80 grand a year in cleaning, I'll start a cleaning company. But the noise versus the money. Yes, you can. I know with you, Ryan, when you were saying like your maintenance guy, if you're doing 0.75 internal, then you're best off just covering that cost and running your own stuff internally. I honestly feel like the noise is not worth the once you start a business, it's going to fail or succeed, and it doesn't stop. You don't just get to year 2 and go, we've had enough of that now. Really, it sort of runs its course until the end, and it'll either succeed or fail. And I think that if these businesses, the little spin-off ecosystem, it's really good. If you're doing like 80% in-house, it makes sense. I don't know. I just feel like, what am I trying to say? The distraction is not worth it. The niche, focus and niche is what's going to make money.
What for our listeners? What are the best ecosystem driving businesses that you've seen or
maintenance?
I like
maintenance.
So when a business like when you I don't know how to get this across word wise, because I'm not educated as well as you, Jack. But
you've been through more education than I have.
I'm not educated like you.
Just not in proper English. But
you're busy. Right, guys. See all those sheep out there? Pick one.
No, fuck off. Right. Back to business. Where's Stuart gone?
He's gone to find the sheep. I think he took it too literally.
Literally, yeah. So with businesses and integrating businesses, coming back to one of your points, by the way, one thing I also look for in a business, whenever I'm looking at any business, is the revenue per employee that you could typically target as well, just so you can see roughly how decent size of a business you could grow it with the number of employees required, because employees do equal headache. Like literally, I've got 50 staff. Not saying my staff are headache. It's just the whole politics that comes with it is really, really headache-y, if that makes sense. We've got I love the startup phase. No rules, small team. You scale, you break things, you move on. Now with my team, I'm already seeing it. You've got policies for this, you've got policies for that, you've got procedures for this, committees for that, you've got debates, you've got rights, you've got all that sort of stuff, which is all fine, but it requires a different mindset. So like the reason coming back to your question, Stu, or sorry, Jack, how do you know? If you've got a business, every part of the supply chain that you're working with typically can feed into that ecosystem. I define it as literally a service that you can bring in-house and generate a positive contribution to your margin, basically, in a very simple nutshell, but also could spin off in its own right with other clients. So not wholly dependent on your own business, and it's a valuable business. And then I add on those extras. What is like the revenue per employee I can get? For example, if it's a business where the revenue per employee is like 150 grand of annual revenue per employee, I'm not really interested. I know you'll need a lot of staff to take that business to a high level, which is fine if that's all you're focusing on, but not if you've got, like you've mentioned, Stuart, too much other noise. I like businesses where you can typically get £500,000 and above of revenue per employee, typically, because you don't need that many staff members to do it. If you look at, though, on the flip side, if you look at my individual businesses, though, broken down, like our civil engineering business, for example, it's currently 4 million turnover, but it's got 15 staff, so it doesn't really it doesn't hit that metric. So I'm like, that's what I would like, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a hard rule. I look at the blended pictures, that the gross contribution that Groundworks business is providing and the control is just making my life in the business a lot better, providing it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. If it's going to make your life, if it's going to value, if it value, I value my time over profit. But if it's going to give me a better quality of life by running a business, then that's when I would look into trying to bring it in house. I think that would be a sentence I would stick to. I don't want to value. I don't want to dilute my time to make more profit. But if the quality of my life improves, then I'll start a business that helps complement.
I think my ambition. I think this does depend a lot on what your ambitions are and like how you want to do things, how you want to allocate your time, and things like that. But the reason I like spinning off these other businesses, if they've got opportunity to scale, we may have to contract some of them. Like you never really know. But I know that anything we've done so far, we've managed to scale it, and it manages to make more money. So I'm like, okay, take that same sort of principle and apply it to the lettings business, apply it to the sourcing business, apply it to the maintenance business.
Yeah, but you're more stressed or less stressed than you were a year ago?
I have a lot more spare time now than I did a year ago. And
I'm
I think that's
surprised
one
you
of the
didn't
reasons.
open like a media agency or something rather than a maintenance company.
Because there's no longevity in those things, which is why I like maintenance. I think maintenance has so much, like construction, has a lot of longevity in the face of the digital economy we're in and like the deflationary effect of technology we're seeing. I just think a maintenance business, you make a good one and it's reputable and you build a good name, like a Pimlico, it's worth a lot of money because you're dealing with such an inherent problem for people. And I think if I'm doing it anyway, and bear in mind, currently I spend 0 hours in that business, but if I've got to spend a little bit more time helping to sort of coach it along gradually, nothing aggressive, we'll do this very gradually and build it on the side of our business. And if it's too much and it gets too heated and we can't solve the systems and the problems, then we'll just contract it a bit and just keep it to our portfolio. But I don't think that will happen. I think we'll find those solutions and then we'll scale a nice revenue stream.
How many hours are you spending on maintenance now as a business?
So we bought in Marcia full time. So Marcia deals with council tax, utilities, and maintenance. That's her primary function. And we brought her in under the proviso that she will scale the maintenance arm of the business. And she comes from a maintenance background. She worked for a maintenance company, and she's hot on it. Like great admin, great systems.
As a
good thinker.
profit share, or as a shareholder in a new arm, or just
employee.
Just
employee. And then she manages Clive and Shane, who are full-time maintenance guys, and we've got 2 full-time cleaners, obviously with the SA and the cleans and the HMOs and stuff. So we're already dealing with a lot of that space. It's just figuring out productizing it and offering that to external landlords or external agents. We don't want to deal with landlords. We want the agreements with agents and office blocks and councils and things like that.
Why don't you split test it and do a cleaning business and the maintenance business? You've already got 2 on the payroll in each business, and see which has better margins, less ag, and then you both might work. One might.
Do you know the biggest thing I found with businesses, that the number one difference between it being like a headache and a ball ache, even if it makes money, and versus it actually being like adding quality to my life and adding quality to the business. The number one is bringing in an operations driver for that business, basically. So for that individual, all they're focused on is that business, and they're rewarded for it. I mean, that honestly, that's what I'll do going forward for every business. I've done it with the civils, done it with the M&E, and the way they can scale and they build teams around them. I'm hardly involved in it. I'm get updates and I'm involved, but really, for that and the other businesses that I've currently got in my pipeline, I'm only ever considering it if I've identified a person I want to run it first.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
So
And
we
it
thought
doesn't
that
have to
same.
be on payroll. It can also be collaboration. People that you come in and
Yeah.
go, right, this is your baby as well, and that also takes a lot of weight off your
Yeah.
off
Well,
your desk.
we had that same pretense to setting up the maintenance. So we were making consistent positive cash flow, so profit in the lettings business. Nothing crazy, but enough to go, okay, we could now employ another maintenance guy to solve that bottleneck, so that we've got maintenance covered. We have 2 full-time guys. But then now Vicky's managing quite a lot and the maintenance. So we went, okay, we've still got this extra profit. Let's take some of that as well and employ Marcia and get her in there. And so we're actually paying more than what we probably need to, but we're preparing ourselves for the
More
scale and the
capacity.
lettings business. Yeah, preparing ourselves for that
You-
capacity, forward funded.
You've got like I'm just trying to work it out. You've probably got a 70 to 90 grand overhead there that you're already paying for. And if you divide that by the amount of jobs you look after, it's being covered in your lettings fees. But
Yeah.
it's, do you want to run 5 or 6 or 8 maintenance guys to have a zero cost? So it's like, do I want to run 7 more people, deal with 7 more KPIs and keeping everyone motivated and
I mean,
dealing
you'd be
with all the
surprised
ag of
how
running a business?
You'd be surprised how profitable maintenance can be, though. Obviously, if you get it right, but you can make like a serious margin in a maintenance business. And that's the only reason I like it. Difficult business. If you get it right, then it's not as a competitive space because it's difficult. It's unsexy, so people don't really want to start maintenance businesses. And there's
Mate,
really good cash
it's
flow. if
cash
you
in
get it right.
trash, mate. Anything, you can,
Yeah.
there's money in everything. So
Exactly. But anyway, yeah,
if you want the headspace, I wouldn't want it. I would rather just outsource
ju-
it, build it into my numbers and move on
Just
to
to
stuff
give you
like
a heads
self-build.
up, and again, just from my admin error today, the charger that I've connected is saying it's charging, but my battery's going down and down and down. So, if I disconnect, you know why. And whoever gave me this charger,
Mate, just
We'll miss you, mate.
sprinkle some of that lemon tree on it. That apparently fixes things
Give it
like
some
that.
life.
hey,
But guys, should
mate,
we get on
lemons,
to
squeeze the lemons.
Should we start the episode?
yeah, should we yeah, welcome
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, 1 hour later.
Now we've already announced the episode, but now
Anyway,
we've got
Ryan,
some
keep us posted on
questions.
maintenance. Keen to
Yeah, good
Yeah.
luck,
see how you
mate.
get
Good
on.
luck
Yeah,
with it.
definitely, mate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good luck.
proper launch in mid-December, but we'll take it super slow.
That's a great time to launch. That is, boom.
Oh yeah,
Christmas Eve.
let's
Leaflets
go.
dropping through people's door.
Fucking right. All right, we've got some questions. So David Bailey, thank you for your question. Comment on the YouTube channel, and he said, "Hi, love the podcast. Thanks for all the content shared so far. I have a question. What are the trends that you are currently seeing in terms of sites that are coming forward for redevelopment, either currently or in the coming 2 to 3 years? For example, in the past, we saw waves of sites like petrol stations, pubs being redeveloped, and of those sites, which do you see as quick wins versus long-term prospects? If, for any instance, you were buying off-market subject to planning." So kind of crystal ball gazing a little bit, but also what sentiment do we see in the market for available stock that's likely to come up? What do you think, guys?
The last 3 sites that we've looked at, which are like 2.8 to 3.3 or sale price, are retiring 70-year-old blokes who have been in the market and sort of self-maintaining. They've got a few empty lets in a serviced office block and they just want to get rid of it and just move on. So we're just finding people who are just
banks there.
coming out of the market. Yeah, and obviously banks are a great trend. At the moment we just looked at another bank as well. So yeah, I just think it's sites that are just worn out. They've served their purpose and are just being distributed onto the market. That's what we're seeing. Or houses that have been rented the
With
last year.
banks
People
as
who
well,
got
right?
offers out.
There's a lot
Yeah,
of
banks. Yeah, of course, banks. Yeah,
From a new
There's
build
a lot
perspective,
of banks actually as well, isn't there?
banks is a good one. Banks, yeah.
from a new build perspective, the trend that I've seen, I don't know if you guys agree, obviously it depends on your area, but is more problematic sites. So a lot of, when we say brownfield, we're talking about now the more upper end of brownfield sites that require regeneration to bring back, because local authorities are so behind on their plans. They've not allocated new sites. It's very hard to get new sites through, especially with ecology drivers now. Developing on greenfield is even more harder than it ever has been ever before. So you're just, everything always points towards brownfield sites. So if you're a developer, I honestly think, and it's going to be area dependent. So I'm going to be proven wrong with this, of course, but unless you've got some internal capability to manage construction and de-risk brownfield, risks and bring some cost in house and some control in house, you're going to find it difficult to compete against others that can do that and win in the new build space, in my opinion. The only other way you can do that, in my opinion, again, is if you go for that value add by getting your own permissions, by literally finding sites with no consents and really working them through. But if you're going to do that, your business plan needs to literally have a 4 to 4.5 to even 5 year cycle. So, and I don't want to scare people off, but by the time you've literally offer accepted to get through those permissions to actually build it and sell it, you are literally talking between 4 to 5 years. That's my perspective.
I
There's a lot
completely
of cash
agree.
to carry.
I mean, I'm first hand of that. We don't have construction in house unless we take the site pre-adopted to planning or can enhance planning significantly. It's never going to work for us. We pretty much have to walk away from it. I would say the trends for us is a big one is big existing buildings that are facing either end of tenancies, so commercial tenants leaving. We are in a new world where office market is coming back slightly, but the hybrid working is much more prevalent than it was 5 years ago when people signed a lease, or 10 years ago when people signed a lease. So you've got existing buildings in what I would call suburban areas where it's not actually that popular to have an office there. If businesses are consolidating and having an office in central London, do they need one in, the Guildfords, the outer skirts of Oxfordshire? Also, we've got to also think about the EPC changes that they're promoting to come in. A lot of landlords are struggling to hit those. So C by 2027 and B by 2030. So for me, it's repurposing tired landlords, sort of 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s and 2000 built offices in good locations. We can add the value because we can get PD quickly and get on site. That's the stuff we like. I also think there's a huge opportunity in investment properties that are residential and owned in people's personal names. I think it was in 2021, 192,000 properties that were sold were owned by buy-to-let landlords owned in their personal name. So a huge opportunity to be buying up that stock. And for all of us, whether it's new build or not, a lot of national home builders did stop building for a few years. So, they're the main bulk of the market, and there's a lot of people that need housing. And I think there's a good opportunity on the sales market. So for me, we just exactly like Dorian said, we're focusing on securing sites subject to planning, which are probably a 5-year play by the time we're in and out. And B, buying existing stock in good locations like the banks, like the commercial offices, that we can get planning consent in 56 days, be on site within a few months, and we're cracking on and knocking it out.
And also, just to touch on that, the other thing we're seeing is complex lease agreements, or where you have to really work a deal out. So it's not just the building you're buying; it's the complexity where a lot of people want to buy, vacant possession buildings, get in there, but they're quite difficult to buy, especially up against developer contractors as well. So if there's a site that comes up that's quite complex, you really need to spend the time and the experience to try and work out a way to play it to get what you want out of it as well.
Yeah, I think there's just in answer to the guy's question, there's definitely going to be a continuation of the Class E high street shop and uppers. We're just seeing them everywhere, and obviously that's been happening. The fallout of that's been quite a few years now. The high streets have been dying off since COVID, but I mean we're seeing now more the secondary and tertiary high streets as well, which before was slightly more robust, where you've got that sort of local barbers shop and uppers and like local little mini shop and uppers. A lot of them are shutting down and coming because of the business parks and stuff that are sort of swallowing a lot of the traffic now. So we're seeing a lot of shop and uppers. We don't really touch shop and uppers, but there's always going to be money to be made, I think. Just
So mixed use.
Have you seen
since
Have you
Class
seen
E,
the? Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say the mixed use schemes are really good, but some of the Class E schemes, since Class E and MA has come out, they're actually really whacking their price up, almost selling it as a residential property. So you have to be a bit careful with the mixed use schemes because you are spending so much more than you would do resi to resi, just with all the sound tests, the fire breaks, and everything you got to spend on top. So don't overpay for them.
Have you seen the new bill that the government have brought in around retail and high streets?
No,
So it's going to completely change the market. So basically, it's a high street rental auctions is how it's tagged, and it basically gives communities and business the right to rent long neglected town centre commercial properties. So basically, if you are a landlord and you've land banked something or you haven't let something on the high street, so you see all these empty spaces in certain areas, there's a way that it goes to public auction for local businesses to rent, and a landlord has to let it to the winner. So it's basically a way of forcing hand to build communities in high streets, and it's actually, you know, out, and they're consolidating the sort of metrics on how that's brought into the market. But I think that's going to be interesting to see, because there's you know, like John said on the podcast last week, he said you can still walk down central London in Mayfair and look right, and there's an empty retail store and empty uppers. And that's, you know, I don't know who owns those, probably Saudi or you know, the like. But forcing hand on building those communities, I actually really rate. And
sounds like a communist state to me. If it's my building and I want to leave it for 20, I mean, there's some of the sites in Guildford that have been developed now, but they've been sitting vacant for 20 years because someone's been in an overage agreement, and it expired.
I mean, the thing is, I'll just rent it off you at Peppercorn, and you'll rent mine off me for Peppercorn, and you know, you're off. I mean,
yeah, fair point.
What's so just on that policy then? So, you know, I'm a landlord. I've got my high street shop there. I haven't been able to rent it out for the price I want it. So now the council take it, auction it off. I've got a mortgage to pay, and
it's third of the price.
yeah.
And,
So
yeah.
councils will be handed new powers next month to breathe new life back into the high streets and transform long-term empty shops. The government has announced high street rental auctions, or HSRAs, will allow local leaders to tackle persistently vacant properties in cities, towns, and villages centres by putting the leases up for auction. This will boost the high streets through the right to rent commercial lots for businesses and community groups after the powers come into force on the 2nd of December 2024 through legislation laid on Monday. The move will stop disengaged landlords from sitting on empty properties for more than 365 days in a 24-month period before councils can step in and auction 1 to 5 year leases.
That's
Growth
fucking insane.
is at the top of the government's agenda, and it's committing over £1 million in funding to support the auction process. £1 million. Fucking hell. That's good. I mean,
Landlords don't sit on empty vacant properties through choice, unless
But
it's a strategic play. They're paying the fucking they're paying business rates. They want it rented.
innit?
I mean, that's literally like a tenner per village of funding to sort out this. Growth is at the top of the government's agenda and committing over £1 million in funding support for the auction process, which will create jobs for local people and boost local trading businesses, community services, and customer back to the high street. With 1 in 7 high street shops,
idea
1 in 7 in high street
Innit?
shops closed, the government is committed to revitalising town centres and bring thriving high streets back for good. The news becomes during the Love Your High Streets Week, organising by the British Independent Retailers Association to champion local businesses and innovation. Minister Alex Norris is basically behind it, I believe, and the business secretary, Jonathan Reynolds.
They have no idea what they're doing, because it's actually going to delay people. People will go, well, there's 4 locations. I won't offer in any of them. I'll wait the time it needs to, and then I'll put a half price cheeky bid in.
If you think about it though, if you've had a site like the old Maltings that we bought that in November 2022. We got planning consent just before we bought it. We readapted the planning to 2023. We bought in 2023. So that has sat empty. It's not a retail, but for an example, let's just assume it part was. I mean, it has got retail frontage on the road, but we would only be like 8 months off pre-construction to have to let it through this method.
You'd set up a business and let it yourself, wouldn't you? I mean, there must be loopholes. I mean,
yeah,
that's the thing. They throw all these
loopholes.
things in.
There'll be loopholes. But I think that the fundamental issue here, and this is where just governments are fucking stupid. This government is just ridiculous. But it's not like high street shop landlords don't want their properties rented. What's happened is we live in a digital age where Amazon and food delivery services and all the rest of it has swallowed all of that old commerce up. So it's no longer viable for people to run high street bricks and mortar shops. Not just the rental either. The way they're putting in the auction there makes it seem like they'll get better rates for businesses going in there, but they also need staff in there, stocking in there, getting their deliveries to there, when they could, at the moment, they could just get it home or in fulfillment centers and fulfill orders digitally. So even if they could put in as much incentive as they want, but if the economy is just not going that way, high streets retail just doesn't work anymore, does it really? Like if you were to start like a retail business, right? You wanted to start like bricks and mortar in person, experience-led stores. I still think it's impossible to make money out of it because the digital world could just do it so much cheaper. It doesn't. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense unless it's a restaurant or a bar. I just
I'm
don't
just
think
thinking now,
it's.
if I was setting up a kitchen company from day one, I'd be looking at every single AI, tech, VR. Yes, you want to touch and feel some certain things, and you want to see products, but I'd avoid it because it's just too risky now. I think any retail business is just to run the shop, the energy, the cost, the heating, the staff, like everything you just said
And you're
there.
competing
It's
against
just,
the internet. You're competing
yeah,
against kids in their room with an ecom platform. Like it's just not. It's not viable. So I don't see how what the government think they're doing. Like that. It just doesn't make sense. They need to create more experience. Do you know what? Darlington's really good, actually. Darlington just had like 3,000-4,000 people in the town centre doing a Christmas light thing. And then every Saturday and every Sunday, they throw events in the town. Those are the things that they need to be doing, not trying to convince landlords to accept really measly lease agreements when they've got a mortgage to cater for and mandates to adhere to. Like it doesn't, they're not thinking like holistically about the actual market and from both sides. I think it's more of a
no.
virtue signaling policy, isn't it? Just to try and say,
Interestingly,
community.
I wonder how many landlords are going to do it in the local area just to fuck over other landlords. Like if you go to these auctions and something is like a big bit of space is going cheap, you know, for example, like this is a huge opportunity. If we're looking to move offices at the moment. It's a nightmare finding any offices in Henley, and there's loads of buildings where landlords have just been sat on them. So I would actually love to attend a few of these. Be like, actually, I'll have a bit of that and move office. Or
There's so much decision.
You're in a
As a
unique
developer,
space, though, Jack. Like Henley and the areas you operate in, they're quite unique. Up here, there's like you want an office space here, mate. I'll walk you down every street, and you'll see one after another, after another, after another. It's just mad. It's mad. But Henley's unique, isn't it? Like this, like it's a desirable location.
There's so much decision making in choosing the right tenant for your building as well, down to the yields they'll create, what package they bring. Is it right for the building? It's not a case of just highest
completely
price
agree.
gets it.
Imagine if that happened in the resi. Imagine if that happened in the resi space. I mean, what I would always hope is that the commercial leases don't change, because at the moment, if a commercial tenant doesn't pay you rent and they're in arrears, you can lock the door and get rid of them because they're in breach of your lease. If the laws ever went for a right to rent, I mean, obviously a lot of commercial leases are within the Act, but if you can get in if you can be in the Act and win on this bidding auction, that's going to completely fuck the market, because then there's no control. You're technically getting
just
a commercial
interrupting the free
quarter.
market again, aren't they?
Yeah,
It's
Giving
just, they
giving
don't see the
councils more
consequences
powers.
because they're not illiterate enough to understand what the consequences are of their decisions. They just think short term, let's fix that, but it has the impact is far superior.
It's a virtue signaling policy, isn't it? We want to bring back community, so we're going to do this, even though it just economically doesn't make any sense and it's completely out of touch with how the world works. But
what they need to do
fucking
is stop borrowing money so everything becomes more expensive, because what you're
cut
doing is you're
expenses.
ripping off the lower market, the lower end of the market. So stop borrowing 120 billion pound to put more infrastructure in place, because that directly affects the lower income earners more considerably than anyone actually understands.
Can we just stress this as well? The government just needs to get a lot smaller. What's his name? Milei. I forgot his name. The Argentinian prime minister or president. He just did a talk with Lex Friedman, and what he's done to that country is actually insane. Like, from literally the cold face of hyperinflation within 6 months, not only did he massively cut government spending, literally took departments and went, nope, we're throwing that out, throwing that out, throwing that out. He's reducing five
I've downloaded
regulations
that
a
to watch
day
on the plane.
Oh man, it's just so good what he's done. I can't remember his
It's
first
basically
name
what
now,
I
it's
said
Milei.
it's basically what I said a few podcasts ago. Fucking cut the country up into counties, give everyone the right to choose what they want to spend the money in locally and nationally,
Yeah.
and let the people fucking choose. And the right thing will come out for what the market wants.
But
Not
it's a republic,
fucking
right?
12
Like,
people around the table in fucking Downing
Yeah.
Street going,
That's
this is what I think's right.
Westminster. Yeah.
No
well,
fucking idea how to run
this
businesses.
is where
No idea how to
America,
run country.
this is where America's about to be the
Oh, it's gonna
beacon
be
of
amazing to
hope.
watch.
Because they're a republic, and we need that in the UK. Like, we should be done with this monarchy-led fucking secular system we've built. Like, it should just be you got the northeast, the northwest, the Midlands, the southeast, whatever. There has to be a federal level that's making sure funds aren't too disproportionate. But let people compete. let boroughs compete with local taxation, local regulation. Like, it just is the best way. It stimulates free market competitiveness, and that's where America is going to outcompete the world, because they've got 51 of them. Like, it's insane. But anyway, that was a long answer to your question, David Bailey. So thank you for your question. Next question. So I've never dealt with this stuff, guys. There's probably more for you. I know. By the way, we've lost Dorian, viewers out there. His laptop died. So Alfie Croft asked, would be interested to hear thoughts on BNG, SAM, etc. Is it damaging housing delivery and becoming a nightmare for developers?
I don't know what ETC is. Do you guys?
Where's ETC?
What?
Joking.
I missed it.
I've never heard anyone call it ETC and ETC
and ETC.
extraterrestrial curriculum.
Yeah,
yes,
I mean,
it
do you
is.
guys deal with it?
Basically, it's the government's profit margin. It's just another way of
Yeah.
saying that they want a slice of every development. There should be a table that you put a postcode in, fucking using AI, and it tells you what all your fees are in one table. Make it nice and clean. I know they do have it on certain websites and certain councils, but when you're working in 40 different councils, it's a fucking nightmare to find all the info. You want to go onto one portal, find out exactly what the fees are, how much the government or the council want to build in their area. SANG is obviously sustainable areas for natural green spaces, which, you know, there's some councils that are landlocked and have to pay twice the amount for some green space in a neighbouring county. BNG is just another way of making more money. 20% now, I think.
I mean, they're obviously
allowance.
pushing the eco of the you know, the main sentiment is that, you know, we're making the world a better place. All part of their, you know, government incentives and targets, and exactly like John said on the podcast last week, like, we're now roped into this like handshake that we had in Brexit, and we're now delivering stuff that we were, you know, it's almost like breaking up with your ex-missus, but you've still got to do a lot of the things that she wanted you to do, even though you've moved on and you're in a new relationship. It's like, we're not forging the way for the future. Yeah,
That's
I mean,
good.
BNG. So you've obviously, so SAM is strategic asset management monitoring. As Stu said, it's SANG is suitable alternative green space, and BNG is biodiversity net gain. Coincidentally, I don't know when this won't be going live in time, because we're at XP Surveys are actually hosting an event specifically around BNG.
Which I'd be coming to if I weren't in Dubai. It sounds quite good. You have to. Do you record it?
No. Got to be in the room. Stu. I can ask Ian if he's okay to record it. But biodiversity net gain.
Bring him on here.
Yeah, we could bring him on here. I think BNG has been more impactful than SANG and SAM. SANG and SAM is actually almost more like the in between community infrastructure levy and section 106. You put an application in, they read the application, they come back to you with a cost that you then do normally an offsite allocation. BNG, you can do an on-site or off-site allocation, and you are trying to improve the biodiversity by 10%. So if you've got 30 trees on your site, you obviously need to plant a minimum of
20
3
now,
more.
I think.
Plus, no, I think it's currently 10%.
You'll
Plus
find out
then the greenery, plus then the driveway, plus then, you know, everything that's got to be offered. And to paint a picture of what it looks like, I've got planning for my own property about a year ago. Way longer than that. But anyway, BNG wasn't part of the application. It was a single dwelling house, and they've obviously now brought it in for minor application since April 2024. Which is any planning application in the UK will be impacted pretty much. It used to be just major applications. And to put it in perspective, so we've got planning for the house, that was all done. That was then, I've redrawn up a new scheme because I wanted to change it significantly beyond non-material amendments. And now we had to wait 7 months for the architect, the BNG consultant, and the planning to figure their shit out, and then come back to me with, you've got to pay $3,000 for an offsite contribution. But if that was 50 houses, that would be 50 times 3,000. So it's huge. That's $3,000 per one unit, and I'm already integrating a whole hedgerow around the boundary line. So I'm already doing quite a lot to offset that 3,000. So it would have been greater. So it is a big change, and you just basically need to speak to the right consultant to make sure you got the right team consulting you in this particular way, and then plugging an event that's gone by. But I'll actually reach out to this lad and see if he wants to come along, because it's free. We're putting on food and drink.
No, nice.
Sounds I mean, good. You are right, mate. It's 10% mandatory.
I've only dealt with BNG on one application that we're dealing with at the moment, and they just wanted rather than we had this like proposed sort of dwarf wall at the front of the property, and instead we have to do a planter and then a little green. I actually proposed to do a green space behind it with a little tree in it anyway, just to make it nice. But then they wanted a grass roof and all the other shit that kind of comes with it.
It's
When it
easier
literally
to
backs right onto a big park.
with B&G, we've got a site at the moment in Tongham, which we've now had to apply again because we were going for 5 houses. We've gone back to convert the old building, the original plan, but the B&G's in place. It's actually better to offset that contribution. So I mean, it's going to be a few grand, between 2 and 10 grand for this site, but you have to maintain it, and you have to maintain the space you've created for up to 30 years. So it will actually potentially put a buyer off if they're going to buy a site from you, if you're going to flip it or sell it on. So it might be worth, when you are looking at B&G, we're going through it now with the planning consultants and stuff, but I think we'll just pay the contribution, be done with it, and then not have that on the site. So it's something to consider. But you'll find out about this at Jack's Talk.
Yeah, because it's serviced. It's going to be serviced apartments, like opposite our other one, and it's quite. The front of the property could do with something, and I feel like just a little planter and then a little sort of wood chip space with a tree in it.
It's
Be
better than the site.
easier to maintenance. Yeah, it is relevant. Yeah,
It's better than the site
Yeah,
and do
yeah.
it. But if it's
Yeah.
put a load of hedgerow in and shrubbery and then maintain it for 30 years,
yeah, it becomes a bit of a nightmare. Yeah.
do it. It's going to make the site look nice, but you don't want to be burdened to looking after it.
So, in summary, to Alfie Croft's question, yes, it is going to be damaging to housing delivery, because the problem is they don't just bring these policies in and it's like, oh, there's an extra cost, I've got to pay for some trees. The problem is dealing with the process, getting the actual surveys done. It's the way the government and the local authorities actually handle the processes. That's, I think, more of the Scrooge for housing delivery and causing a nightmare for developers. If it was just like you got another 2-3 grand to pay on a fucking tree or on a contribution, developers, yeah, it'd be annoying because you're just adding more cost to housing, which the end user is eventually going to feel. But ultimately, not as annoying as 2-month delays on, discharging some bullshit survey. Like that's where the core issue is.
They also didn't put a lot of thought into the original when they originally released B&G, they had a requirement that you had to allocate something along the lines of a 10% allocation of improvement in B&G, and people would just then be like, well, I've got one tree there, so I'll just plant one next to it and then build 50 houses in this field. And they would hit their allocation because they've doubled the B&G allocation because they planted one tree. So the government completely didn't even foresee that, and then they had to go back and rechange it all.
The real nightmare, just quickly, right? The real nightmare on that last question isn't so much the cost, because you can build that into your numbers. You're right, it's the process. It's the survey reports you have to do. It's the 3 weeks waiting for the reports. It's the changes that have to be made because something was made incorrectly. It's paying for your legal fees. It's paying for the council's legal fees. It's going in this process that can't be actioned until outline permission has been granted or they're getting close to approving it. Then you can start this next process. So it's all this time and another strand of pain that comes with.
It's also the council's interpretation to handle that application. So you've got who's the paying client. You've got a consultant that's doing this day in, day out, and they get it. They know it like the back of their hand. And then you're putting an application in with someone that isn't trained or doesn't understand how it operates, and also probably don't agree with it either to some degree. They've just got to do it, and they probably hate doing it. Imagine if you worked at the council and you go, right, we got a little extension in this house, it's under prior approval. They've just done a certificate of lawful use application because they carried out the work. Can you sign it off? And then we've got this master infrastructure project where you've got to approve all of this ecology, this B&G stuff, but you're not allowed to spend any money bringing a consultant in to advise you. You've got to look at their report and interpret it. These people aren't qualified to do it. So every job that you feel, every time your employee is doing a job they're not comfortable with, it's probably because they don't understand it or they're not qualified to do that.
Yeah.
So
that's a really, really important point. That's the second and third order consequences of these things, because which you're doubling down on there, that if you're a small developer, and this is where policies like this and the layering of more and more regulations like fucking B&G and all the rest of it it's catering much more to the big developers and the big companies who have the teams to absorb new processes, new systems, softwares, and ways of dealing with things. SMEs, like imagine in Central Suites, Jack, between you and Rob, if you then suddenly had to deal with all these extra regs, yes, you could probably stomach the cost and individually could stomach the time. There's no way you then have more time to actually scale the business and grow the business. So you kind of like, it's like fucking, what's it called, that Gulliver's Giant or whatever. It's tying us down with a million ropes. Where if
Yeah.
you're not big enough to absorb it,
Death
then
by
you can't.
1,000 cuts. Yeah.
Yeah,
With
and
that,
it makes
point
small
with the cancel,
developers.
it goes down to the subjectivity of reading a particular email. So one of our consultants wrote an email and spelt out what they were meant to try and get around this problem we had. It took 3 weeks for the answer to get answered, for them to fully understand what we were saying. To go, that is 3 weeks, $8,000 a month on interest costs is $6,000. That one sentence, that one email that was holding the planning application back, cost us as a developer $6,000 straight off the bottom line, because the guy couldn't understand what we were saying in an email. It's fucking insane.
Are you
super important.
angry about that, Stu? Do you want to tell us something?
It's not one thing that's you take so much risk as a developer, and you take these little things, but when you've got 5 or 6 different developments at different sites, and there's little bits like that happening all over the place, it can be very frustrating. And you can see why developers go so far and go, actually, I want to stick to the easiest stuff. But we're all up for a challenge, and we all love the fight.
Yeah,
so
I'm going to set up a maintenance business.
Yeah, mate.
Fucking go, son. But it's important.
Hair salon over there.
He'll lose more of that hair of his after he starts that business. I can tell you that.
I've lost too much anyway, mate.
He'll just wear his hard hat if he's permanently in that hideout.
Fucking hell.
It'd be a ground up hoodie, beanie hat next year.
He'll come in next session and be like, guys, maintenance business is going well. I've got a really good idea. I want to set up something in Turkey.
Help those less fortunate.
I'm spending 80% of our revenue on
I watched that episode that we recorded the other day where Stuart was like, I don't know what Turkey's like. Might be all right, might be not.
Might be a shithole. No, it's actually really quite nice. My brother was actually over there. He said it's very nice. But he said it gets very cold in the winter. As soon as the sun drops, jumpers and coats on. And he said the pool was too cold because the air doesn't get warm enough. So not the place I want to go for my summer holiday.
Not shithole. Fuck it. Not for
not
me.
A shithole. But really beautiful.
Just back to these points on the regulations, just for anyone listening out there, anyone getting into the development space, you have to kind of understand it, that as they add more regulations and policies that are like ubiquitous for developers across the country, every time they add something, they're stacking the odds against SMEs. They just stack them more and more and more against SME developers being able to grow their business because of that fundamental thing that Jack sort of mentioned, where your staff or you yourself then have to split more of your time to adhere to policies, regulations, and you're not getting that back. You're just adding more cost and time delays. And it's such a stupid thing that they keep layering in more shit.
I think as business owners, we need to lean into everything that we can do, like social media. You know, if you think about it, it is such a level playing field now. If you think about Gymshark, for an example, they set up their retail business and their first store was launched last year in Regent Street, and that was the first store that they've ever launched. And now that now they are launching more. Where we're restricted in a free market with actual bricks and mortar and councils and legislation and things like that, we do have a lot more at our fingertips to exploit that free market where we can compete with the big players. And I think that's the angle that we should be going around, which is, for an example, Central Suites is a paperless retail-less business. You name another lettings business that's been running for 40 years that doesn't have paperwork and doesn't have an office space. So it's like, it's doing what you can as the new age, I think will really help businesses like ours thrive against the odds. Like you say, it's not easy.
It's not easy, but it's definitely possible.
On Saturday, I decided to go to Tongham and do a neighbour consultation with all of the local residents at 9:00 on a Saturday. And it was like walking into the Dragon's Den, man.
Did you wear a stab vest?
Fuck. The first 20 minutes.
It felt like Turkey in the winter.
It's coming on to what you just said. So basically I was in there, and for the first 20 minutes I was verbally abused, attacked. Like, now they were like very angry that they were losing parking spaces. Our scheme didn't have enough parking, even though it meets complete, the National Planning Framework Policy. We went heavy on the bushes. So, sorry?
What's the nature of the scheme, just for audience?
The scheme is it's going to be 8 units. So we've got 6 1-beds, 2 2-beds, and a 3-bedroom with study house. Enough parking, 11 parking spaces off the ground. But the main issues they had originally, where we wanted 5 houses, was we had to put 1 entrance through, reuse the existing 2 entrances to the site, and that there was 2 parking spaces per property, which is what you need. So we designed it as best we could. But they, after speaking to local neighbours originally, they wanted houses, so we put the houses there. Then we had 38 objections. It was going to go to committee. We looked at the scheme again, spoke to the council, spoke to some of the other neighbours. They were like, no, maybe we want flats. So we redesigned the scheme to give it flats. Now, before we put the application in, our planning consultant was like, look, call a meeting, send the letter out to everyone far and wide, put the letters up on the Arisfal, on the fences, and go and do a meeting. So I went there for the first 20 minutes, absolutely getting destroyed with anger until they could see the new plans. And then I said, look, this is before we put it in, this is what we're doing. Ticked as many boxes as I could. And after about an hour, I spent about an hour and 45, 2 hours with them. And after about an hour, they realised that we're just a local firm. I told them a few sites they've seen us develop locally. They knew of Skylofts, and they were like, "Oh no, some of them have heard of Skylofts and heard we're good." And I said, "Look, we're a local builder. We want to enhance this area." Now they just thought we were making millions and millions of pounds of profit. I'm like, this is on the verge of making the minimum margin we'd want to build. If we don't get planning for this, we're going to sell it on. Now we've had interest from the co-op and Londis on this site, and I said to them, look, if I don't get what we need here, if I don't get some support from you guys, I'll have no choice but to sell this site on. And whatever the next developer wants to do on the site, the fact is this site is going to be developed. Something you're going to have to take some compromise with this scheme. Obviously, the guy next door was upset we're putting a house that's going to be directly looking into his garden. The distance, I brought up Google Maps and said, we are almost 2.5 times the distance from every one of your neighbours away. There's 3 trees. We'll be standing here on 1 floor up. The kitchen is, and it's obviously, we've offset it, so it doesn't even look into his garden because it's got like a 10-degree angle. I said, you'll be standing here. There's 3 trees. Someone will be putting more sites here if we don't get what we want here. Anyway, they're all gone from total objections. The parish councillor was down there, and I've gone round in circles, showed them what we're doing, and ultimately I think we've drummed up like 16 email addresses, got the parish council, a positive review from them saying we're going to put this forward at the next parish meeting with your new scheme, and we can get behind it and support it and stuff. So it was a well worth exercise, but walking into 26, 30 local neighbours.
You literally took NIMBYism.
I didn't want to say
NIMBYism,
but they all want houses. But
you ate NIMBYism for breakfast.
Yeah, but they were lovely people.
Did you go?
Concerned about building?
Did you go? Whose car is that blocking the road? I've just come in there. Someone said it's Karen's. Any Karen's here? And all of them went, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, and I said to them at the end of the day, outside our bit of land where they parked all their dogs, and they're already moaning about parking. I said, if you want to get a petition together to put double yellows outside the building, it's parking against the land. At the end of the day, I'm your neighbour now, so we want to build it, hold it. If you want to put double yellows out there, I'll sign the petition. If people are driving down this road late at night and they're speeding, and you want to put a speed camera out the side, give me the petition, I'll sign it. I'm not here to fight you lot. These problems are here whether I build my site or not. The extra parking, I said there was a TPO that was put on the tree outside the front. I said one of the neighbours has put a complaint into the council. They've slapped the TPO on it, which has actually lost 3 car parking spaces on our land because we can't now build underneath the tree. So that's reduced the amount of parking that we would have tried to help to. Yeah. I said, if we come to build the site and we can get another 1 or 2 parking spaces on it, then we'll do it.
Listen to the shit you're having to go through, like just on one site. Imagine how many sites there are in the UK, and this is the problem we have. It's just so
you can't please everyone.
Fucking mental.
You can't please everyone.
But go on, give us some of the
parking. Give us some of the. We're going into a world where
I'm going to have to.
I can put robo taxis on, and I can have people sharing. Then we'll have 2 or 3 robo taxis that they can subscribe and use. That's the way we're going in this world. I don't know if they realise that.
Yeah,
driverless cars is the future.
Amen.
Anyway,
so I've got to pick someone up and shooting all day. So
I'm off to Andover. So I'll see you boys later.
Jack.
But wait, you lads carry on. I'm interested to watch back what the Karens had to say. I reckon if you
want to hear some of this.
If you recorded it and had like some of the we've had before, like if you raise that ridge of your house, our kitchen will be in permanent darkness. And I was like, well, we're fucking 60 meters away, love. I don't think the fucking sun fucking exists in our roof. Anyway.
Fucking people. Anyway, safe one, Jack.
See you, mate.
See you later, mate.
Later, lads.
Go on, Stu. Give us a taste of what were some of the objections, what were some of the comments they were saying as you walked in.
Then there were 2. So the main 2 things that I'll sort the screen out quickly. What's going on here? There we go.
Oh, fucking hell.
What's going on here? I'm over here. Oh, we've gone portrait, landscape. What are we doing? So the main things, right? So we wrote down all the objections into a list, put them into a table, and the main ones were lack of parking. The verge on the side is a natural screening, so there was a hedgerow between our land and the road, which they wanted the natural screening, which we wanted to remove a 4-meter section, 3.7 meter section to create 1 more entrance into these 2 new dwellings. What was the other one? It was the parking. Yeah. Oh, and the access points. So there's 2 existing access points. Now this was a vets prior to us starting. Now they were really concerned about the amount of people using the existing entrance because it goes onto a corner of a site, which we already worked out that by having a traffic survey done, that it would be used once per hour, where the vets would be used 5 times an hour. And if it was a commercial shop or a Londis or a co-op, it would be used 10 times an hour, is what they worked it out for the amount of traffic, what do you call it? Whatever, traffic uses. So I instantly was like, right, we've kept the verge exactly as it is. All we're going to do is trim it back, make it, prune it, and make it look pretty. The 2 existing entrances we're going to keep, and we've reduced the amount of times that risk of that entrance will be used. And the parking, we've managed to get 1 extra parking space more than what the MPPF needed for the site based on the amount of units we're putting on. We've gone for 9 units because we keeps it under the sill, so we haven't got to pay any community infrastructure levy. And it means that we're now building a side extension to the existing building. And I open the doors. I mean, the vets is disgusting. It's smelly. It's horrible. The whole side extension is knocking down. I opened the door to them. I said, look, whoever wants to go in, feel free to look around. And the other thing was that the vets, the people who used to use the vets, used to walk to site, where I know full well that my wife and the family and the mother-in-law used to have a cat, and they used to drive it from Normandy and stuff in and out of the areas where a lot of people would drive to a vet's to, you're not going to walk down the road for a mile with your cat box and stuff to sort out your animals. So that was a bit of a weak fight, but it was just bombardment of all these things. I was like flipping out. This is 9 o'clock in the morning. I've just opened up the gates and and the caveat of this, they were all very nice and they weren't rude. There's one guy who was a bit upset he didn't get a letter, even though he lived about 4 streets away. And and then one of the other guys was like, to be fair to me, he's had signs up for the last 4 weeks on the gates, all laminated, saying that this date was going to happen. He said, well, I drive by, I don't read them. I'm like, man, what can you do? But I just kept it cool and was like, look, this is what we're trying to do. This is the scheme. This is the best we can offer this site based on everyone's objections and what we feel is the best thing for the site that's going to make us profit. But the thing was going on to what Jack was saying is that they all think we make millions and millions of pounds. I'm like, this site is marginal on the margin we need to make versus the risk we need to take.
I know.
This is really the lowest we can make this site work to get what we want out of
it's
the
a sign
site.
of the times, mate. It's a sign of the times in our country. Like, I mean, just Labour, like they have no understanding of risk capital. They just have no understanding that yes, there's successful people that make lots of money. For them to do that, they generally take massive risks of their own money, and a lot of them go under, a lot of them go bust, and a lot of them don't make it. The ones that do, we should celebrate because they've added jobs to the economy. They've added gross domestic product. Like, it's just unfortunate that is NIMBYism is built off of that, basically, that same sort of mantra.
And that's why I love doing this podcast, is that it gives us 4 a small voice. If 3, 4, 500 people listen to this, it takes a while to build up that base. But ultimately, we're all not trying to ruin the country. We're trying to do our bit. We are trying to leave our own little legacies, and we're trying to help the planning issue and help the housing issue in the UK. And we're trying to work around all the red tape and all the holes we have to work around. I mean, if we have a small platform, which hopefully in time we can bring more persuasive people on who will help us help all the developers try and succeed. It's going to get tougher and tougher if we don't make a bit of a stand and try and really outline these problems. And NIMBYism is a massive problem because everyone wants to help and but I'm like, these people who live here, they're all worried about it being DSS people and they've got drug issue. They're using the car park at the moment to do drug deals and stuff, and all the neighbors know it. I'm like, well, we're going to sort all that out because we're going to bring in 8 to 10 local people who want to live near mum and dad, who can't afford to live, that want to either rent or buy or whatever we decide to do with the site. Ultimately, they don't want to move out of the area, and there's no flats in this area within a mile that are going to be to the standard we want to build, that are a premium finish, that are going to give people a better quality of life than an unused vets that's a mixed-use scheme on a very large site that's got all this potential. And I think once they heard it again and again and again, that they were like, okay, this guy's just trying to make a crust. He's trying to make a living. If he makes a few $100,000, happy days. They understand the major risks associated with it. And they also understood that if it's not me doing it, it's going to be someone else. And if it's a big corporate company, they're not going to give a shit about you lot. They're going to come and put a 3,000 square foot unit in that suits them and fight it for 2 years with the council. I can't afford to keep the site that long.
That's the benefit of you
get planning or we sell it.
That's the benefit of you hosting the meeting, mate. Like, because big
Yeah, it
corporates
was.
they just won't do that on such a small site. Like for them, it's a small site. Big sites, yeah, they might do it, but on that sort of site, like at least they get a say or feel like they get a say, and then you keep them at
Yeah.
bay, and then you've managed that expectation for the rest of it. So
There's an
smart move,
Acer
mate.
tree out the front as well. I put it up on my social media, SW Homes Ltd. If you're still listening to this, but yeah, at the there's an Acer tree out the front, and after we've gone through all the pleasantries now, and everyone's friends, and it's all nice. We've exchanged emails and telephone numbers, and they were like, "Oh, what are you doing with that tree out the front?" I'm like, "Which tree?" And it's this little beautiful little Bondi Acer tree that's growing. And 3 or 4 were like, "Oh no, we want that, we want that." I said, "Well, it all depends on who gives me the best letter of support. Then, we'll have a look at the end, and I'll have a read, and we'll do a sell-off based on the
Absolutely, mate.
nicest report." So there's some of them are actually quite supportive now. So I think they were like, "It's a lot better than the first scheme. We can get behind you." So it's all positive. It's cost us 12 months. All this
Yeah,
headache
yeah,
has cost us 12 months, which the investors have been amazing, and they're actually potentially, we're going to find out today, if they're just going to buy out the lender, just so we've got the site sitting there. We're going to pay them a coupon on their money, just to
yeah,
takes the pressure off with
yeah,
borrowing more
yeah.
money. And the site is still profitable, but it gets marginal. If we have to wait another 12 months for planning, we'll just sell it, make a 50 grand loss, and be done with it. But sell it with
Holding too much
planning.
capital. Yeah, yeah.
But ultimately, I think we're looking positive now. So it's just the risk
Nice.
and the anxiety of being a developer. You can't win everything, and you've got to put the hard yards in. Building the thing is the easiest bit. If you've got a good building team behind you who are willing, motivated, our culture on site is phenomenal.
I was going to
I
say
spent some time with.
for you, building is because you come from that background, but for a lot of people, building is that's the risky bit, the scary
Yeah,
bit.
well, that's the best bit we offer our investors, is that I would
Take
say
that
that
risk
we've
out of it.
nailed the finish, and we've nailed the process. And I think we're only going to get better and faster and be more cost effective as we move ahead. So actually, the development and the delivery piece is the fun bit, and that's the bit that we excel at. But it's the pre-planning and the risks that we need to focus on to make sure we buy a site over consented, that we can just jump straight on and make our margin on the build site, which is not as fun as taking a site and putting your spin on the site. And it's a fun game to play. And it's like every day, it's like another day. You're rolling the dice, and it's like playing Monopoly. What are you going to land on? What's going to come across your desk? What
Well, give
site
us
can you buy at a real good steal?
speaking of fun games, give us your quick 101 to close out the podcast on the recent Bitcoin performance, because it's
Oh, mate,
fucking nuts.
we're
Hockey
in the
stick.
banana zone, baby. The banana zone is where it just goes up and up and up and up.
What do
I
you
mean,
think though?
buying for the last 4
Price
years.
prediction. What do you think? What do you think's happening next
I
year?
think by September 2025, we should hit between $200,000 and $300,000 of Bitcoin. And I don't see a reason why there should be a huge bear market. It might drop 30-40% just because of the way that the market and the way they start squeezing QT. They'll start tightening, and governments and stuff won't be able to buy as much. And as soon as there's a bit of a scare, it will have a drop down. But I don't think we're going to see anything like the bear markets of the past. I just think that now there's just the floodgates are open. It's institutions with the ETF was the trigger point. They've become legalized effectively. It become very risk off, and now you've got governments. I mean, you've got so many people buying. I could talk for hours about it, but super bullish. I can't see, once you see Bitcoin and you see what it actually is and the potential of it and how it's going to change the world. Now governments, and you've got obviously Trump, who his whole family are into Bitcoin, and they're into cryptocurrency. And I have got a bit of a problem with crypto. There is utility with it, but ultimately just buy the scarce asset and buy MicroStrategy as well. I've sort of been putting a couple £100 every week or every month away when I can afford it, and that's just rocketed. I'm up 1,000% on that. It's the highest performing asset, but it's the highest traded asset of all time. I can't see that dropping because he's leveraging Bitcoin. So once you have to understand the fundamentals of Bitcoin. Some of my mates have bought it on a punt because I've said, boys, just buy a few grand, and they've doubled their money in like a month, 6 weeks. But I've been sitting on it for a long time, watching it grind upwards, and now it's just going up like a firework. But everyone's expecting it to crash, so everyone's shorting it, but they don't understand what they're doing. They're borrowing money in fiat, which is a debasable currency, which is worthless, for 0%. They're borrowing 2.6 billion dollars this year, this week. They're borrowing it for 7 years at 0% because they're a trading company. They're a different business to a savings company. They're taking all that money, which is debt free, and they're buying the hardest asset known to earth that's humanly. To humankind, it's the scarcest asset in the world, which is so desirable now. Countries are going to start buying it, and they're getting 7 years of free growth, which is just mind blowing because they're leveraging Bitcoin. It's growing at twice the rate of what Bitcoin goes. And obviously, if you believe in where Bitcoin's going, you want to be buying the proxy, which is MSTR. So, I just totally recommend everyone needs to buy 500 quid's worth and just watch it so that you pay attention. No one's going to
Yeah,
teach you
yeah.
about it. You need to go and learn about it. And, you know,
Yeah.
and whenever it needs to be, we're what, a few grand away from 100 grand. You know, I was buying it at 15 or 13, 14,000 pounds, which was great. You know, and just
I
just
know,
by
mate.
going, I'm going to put 5 grand in. It felt really uncomfortable because everyone was going, it's going to 6 grand, to 3 grand, to 2 grand. But I fundamentally believed in it when it was worth 40 grand. So I was thinking, well, I've got to buy a little bit now. It was 13, 14 grand. And I'm so glad I did, because it's like, yeah, 3-4 times extra money in 12 months. So
Yeah, definitely anyone out there listening, go look at the Michael Saylor MicroStrategy thesis. He's an absolute beast. I mean, he's basically found the infinite money glitch. Just nuts. But like for him, just as a person and his company, how he's managed to pivot from being this software solutions to creating out of necessity a treasury reserve asset in Bitcoin, and now monetizing that to the absolute limit. He's got 330,000 Bitcoin. Like,
it's the new meme of
mental.
what he's done. He'll become the most powerfulest company and the wealthiest company in the world. And it's so much fun watching him just come steaming through the ranks of all these other companies that,
Yeah.
you know, he's actually going to do a 3-minute talk to Microsoft in December, where they've had no choice now, because obviously the shareholders in Microsoft that have got 300 billion pounds worth of cash, or whatever, and you've got what do you call him, Warren Buffett, sitting on all this cash. So people are now having to pay attention, because his company is
Public
worth
pressure.
100 billion now. I think it's going to be worth £1 trillion or in the next year or two.
Yeah.
So everyone's watching his machine go up and up and up, and now Microsoft offered him a 3-minute pitch to speak to the shareholders before they vote to see whether they want to start putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet, and that's in December, which is a month away.
Oh, I
So if
want to
that
see that.
happens,
Oh, I want to see that.
if that happens, then you're going to have Apple trying to buy at the same time. You're going to have Meta. You're going to have governments, countries, all trying to buy
Google.
a part of the 21 million Bitcoin network. And again, it's no one can ever say it's got no intrinsic value, because the value of actually owning a part of this network, which is totally scarce, is the value. And the fact I can send it to me immediately a
Well, that
million
and
times a
power,
second.
isn't it? That and power. Michael Saylor talks about that. Is you literally, by owning Bitcoin, you're owning a tangible embodiment of economic power. So it is backed by pure raw power, as in energy, oil, electrons, like the things that make our world move. Owning Bitcoin,
Yeah.
you're owning a proxy to the economy. You own power by owning Bitcoin, and which is kind of what gold was. But gold is just not a useful. It's not got a good use case. It's just gold. It's just a metal. It just sits on your fucking in your wardrobe. Whereas Bitcoin can be used. It has much more utility and is that store of value.
What
like
Bitcoin can be
obvious.
used for as programmable money or programmable energy, economic energy, is you're locking your energy and time in today's money in the Bitcoin network, which goes up against everything else that can be debased in the world. But what Bitcoin can be used for has not been invented yet. The fact that I can move energy around, or data, or parts of the internet, it's like you're buying a slice of the internet that can be used for things that will never. It's like trying to understand the internet in 1993 to go, everyone's going to have this thing to an abundance of energy on your iPhone. You know how we use stuff now. How we'll be able to. The AI is not going to want gold. It's not going to want dollars that can be debased. It's going to want energy. It's going to run off of energy, economic energy. And the fact there's only 21 million and there's 8 billion people on the planet, try and get yourself 0.1 of a Bitcoin would be what I say. Try and get yourself a Bitcoin, do what you can. But it's
actually misleading, isn't it, to say 21 million, because it's actually more like 16, 17 million. Because
million I've heard recently.
yeah, most of them been lost. Like most Bitcoin's been lost to the ether and it won't come back.
Well,
So it's actually
the Bitcoin itself hasn't been lost. The passphrase, the key phrase to unlocking the
They're locked
Bitcoin has
up.
been lost. Now, the hard drives that people used to put it on when it was worthless, or they had 10,000 Bitcoin, that would be on a key phrase that I wrote down on a Word document on a hard drive that's been thrown away. So people are trying to find the hard drives, unlock the code that they put on a Word document they saved to the database, to the desktop 10 years ago, that's been thrown in landfill. That's what they're trying to get hold of. The Bitcoin still exists. The passphrase to unlock the Bitcoin to move it is what they're trying to find. So people think, oh my God, they're going to try and hack it. You can't hack Bitcoin. Bitcoin's been unproved. It's never been hacked in 16 years now. It's a phenomenal technology, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I totally recommend just putting a little bit of your net worth, the Enlightenment. And now Donald Trump's on board, mate, and his whole infrastructure, his whole administration are all Bitcoin. It's insane.
Yeah.
I've also bought a few. I've had a product called HBAR. I remember we spoke about it a few years ago. I didn't sell them. It's dropped all the way down, and I don't really believe. But the utility of what HBAR is, it's the Hedera network. it's a rumors network. So rather than working on blocks of information that get layered over time, which takes a long time for consensus to happen, for the block to be established and verified before it creates the next block, the rumors network works on once two nodes agree. I think it's been a long time, but once two nodes agree, it goes in. It's like, imagine a string of guitar strings. Once one tells one tells two tell four. So all these strands, like DNA, creates a continuation of data. And once two validators agree, it then gets locked into the Hedera network. So it's like super quick. And if you look at the members of Hedera, you've got all the highest establishments, which, you know, you've got, what's it called, Davos, it's always at Davos, all these big companies. You've got LG on there, you've got Google, you've got Boeing, you've got so many of these companies. There's 39 on the council membership, and they all stay for about 4 years before they have to then get knocked off on another. You've got charities on there, you've got all these uninterlinked companies, which is the idea is that they are the nodes who protect the network that's obviously global. The guy who runs that, I can't remember his name, but he's potentially down to become the next SEC chair, which to replace Gary Genza, which if he gets in, they are talking about using Hedera to run all of the votes in the future in America. So rather than having ballot boxes, it'll all be done digitally on the network, so it can't be manipulated. And obviously, if that gets put in for infrastructure, there's also another one called SUI, which I'm quite into. I'm saying I put a couple of grand into it. Like, it's just a bit of a hedge, but you could 100x. But SUI's back from guys who left Meta to set up what they wanted within the press of one fingertip, within one button. You can buy theatre tickets through this network. You can buy a car for it. You can buy a house for it. It's like almost a monetary system in itself, but it's the underlying base development technology that you can build on top of is really quite good to build like a whole network, a whole internet on top of. And the SUI network is what it's built on. So there's loads of them. There's Ethereum. There's all these other ones, which they are punts because there is so many networks that can be copied and pasted and it's going to go down a different path. But there is only one Bitcoin, which is the energy network that everything's built on top of. So I just recommend understand Bitcoin first before you start taking punts on other little bits and bobs. But ultimately, all of my energy is in Bitcoin.
And get enlightened, people. But anyway,
study Bitcoin. There's so much out there to learn now, and especially on YouTube. Just Michael Saylor, Robert Breedlove, Raoul Powell, and Jack Mallers. Just Google those names and watch their shit, man, because they know what they're talking about.
Fucking right. But anyway, anyone out there?
Let's go to work, shall we? 9 o'clock.
Yeah. Go to fucking work. 9 o'clock. Thank you for listening. We release these episodes every Thursday at 5:30 a.m. on Spotify and YouTube, so make sure you check that out. Give us a subscribe, share the podcast with anyone who you may think finds it useful. But big love. Thanks for listening. Bitcoin, baby. Cheers, all the way. Safe.
See you later.
Ground up sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deal. We lay